I want to welcome everybody to the latest installment of our Family Foundation Speaker Series this afternoon. My family and all of our associates are encouraged to see such a large crowd here tonight, and we'll fill up all the tables, obviously. We want to welcome everybody on a virtual basis that's with us tonight from around the world via a live webcast as well. With the crowd here and the interest in our webcast, we're reminded again and again of the issue of childhood obesity and the great concern we all have about that problem that our country is facing. Not many things are as personally important to me as the health and wellness of children. I have 6 myself, name and age. I have a child, and our families. The obesity crisis is critical to everybody in this room tonight. More needs to be done to control and eliminate the problem, and the fact that you're here tonight would indicate that you're in agreement with that. Much of the Family Foundation's work is devoted to improving the health and fitness of Georgia's school children. We invest our money, we invest the time and the talent of our staff. We support the NFL's Play 60 campaign. You just saw one of their PSAs running up here, which provides programs that encourage kids to be active at least 60 minutes a day. We invest the resources of our football team, the Atlanta Falcons, including our players and our cheerleaders who visit kids on a weekly basis, engage them in physical activity of a variety of kinds. I've done a lot of it myself, and I've enjoyed working with them. All of this is an effort to improve youth fitness and save a generation of children from the dangers of obesity. I first got to know Dr. Ken Cooper close to 40 years ago, when his groundbreaking book on aerobics helped save my own life and the lives of millions of others by guiding me into the fitness movement. Dr. Cooper is a dear and trusted friend, and we are happy and thrilled to have him here tonight as an expert on the issue of childhood obesity. More importantly, we appreciate the friendship that Dr. Cooper has extended to many of us here tonight, to me personally, to our Family Foundation, to the National Football League, and to the governor, and to many Georgia schools that are working to help our children. Dr. Rady is a new friend. We're pleased and honored to have him tonight as well, and we're excited and encouraged by his findings that exercise builds brain cells and repairs old ones. Since I've been running since I'm 21 years old, and I'll be facing 68 on Monday, and I need all the brain cells I can get, that's really good news for me. So thank you for the research, Dr. Rady. We hope, Doctor, you'll consider Georgia your home away from home, as has been the case for Dr. Cooper. And I want to thank you both for personally being here. On the practice field, Coach Smith, our head coach, and his staff urge players to compete every second the clock is ticking. They have a term for this. It's called playing through the whistle, which means not letting up, giving every ounce of effort until the referee's whistle stops the play. We're honored tonight to have a special guest with us who personifies that, who plays through the game the same way, the same kind of commitment, and that's our Governor, Sonny Perdue. With his second and final term, Governor is still working hard, still playing through the whistle, still making a difference, and scoring touchdowns, if not every day, certainly on a weekly basis. He's definitely playing through the whistle. Since becoming our governor in 2003, Sonny Perdue has contributed his strong business sense and instilled a business-based approach to our state and the way it's operated today. His accomplishments since 2003 are numerous and are significant. He's been instrumental in attracting new businesses to our state. He's reformed the state budget, cutting unnecessary expenditures along the way. He's demanded accountability for results and a culture of customer service, which I certainly share, in addressing the needs of all of our residents in this wonderful state. And he has raised the bar for education in a variety of ways, and there are a few examples. Of particular significance tonight is the work the governor has done in caring for the children in our state. So with that, I would like to welcome the governor. I want to thank him for his support. I want to thank him for everything he's done for the state of Georgia. I want to thank him on behalf of all of our children, and always say it's an honor to be with you, Governor Perdue. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Thank you.
Arthur, you've been running since you were 21. I wondered how you got so smart. Now I know, Dr. Rady. And but thank you and Stephanie and the Blank family and the foundation for really this and for bringing these kind of professionals to talk about something that is just very, very important in young lives and in older lives, and that's what we'll hear about today. Dr. Cooper and I and several others, Donna Hyland and the Alliance and Penny and many others had a lot of fun this morning out at Shiloh Elementary in Snellville. And I know that we saw some kids who were excited. They got a great message from Dr. Cooper and from others about a lifestyle of health and activity. And it really was fun because if we have to admit to ourselves, this is probably not a good spot where we've done a great job modeling to our children what their behavior should be. And so hopefully we can do that. And we've got Coach Satchwell here tonight who's been in PE, physical education. And I say that with the utmost respect because sometimes we think PE teachers just have playtime. This coach for over 19 years has been providing parents with the information that we're going to talk about tonight about the fitness of their kids. So thank you, Coach Satchwell, and thank you for what you've been doing there. With the help of those strategic partners this morning, we were, and your generous donation from the foundation, Arthur, we're making a giant step in the right direction. We cannot talk about this topic too much. And when you see the kind of facts that Dr. Cooper and Dr. Rady are going to talk about tonight, we can't ignore them from a vast array of statistics and reasons, not only fitness and health, but achievement and academics and that brain connectivity that is absolutely fascinating with the recent research that these gentlemen are doing. So today we introduce the Georgia Student Health and Physical Education, easily known as the SHAPE Partnership. So this coalition is a robust collaboration of diverse stakeholders. First of all, our host tonight, the Arthur Blank Family Foundation, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, the Georgia Department of Education, the Georgia Department of Community Health, and our Director of Public Health, and the Georgia Children's Health Alliance, as well as the Governor's Office. And it's been a real thrill, and we want to thank Donna, particularly the Alliance, for being kind of the project manager and spearheading this and really driving the energy behind this to come together. But certainly couldn't be done without the resources of Arthur, of you and Stephanie and your family, and putting resources into something that will make a difference in children's and adults' lives for a long time. I'm hoping that this kind of effort, when we get the cultural change on the child's perspective, I'm hoping it can be like seatbelts were in my generation. You know how I learned how to wear seatbelts? My children taught me because they wouldn't let me start the car until I buckled up, because I'd grown up in a generation of non-seat belts, and they became aware of the safety factor. And I'm hoping that we can change enough kids in this that they can help us adults who are somewhat in transit in this effort and in our activities, and maybe they can teach us. So we're going to start measuring fitness in Georgia just like we keep scoring academics and sports, because I think, Arthur, you're in the scoreboard business, and you have to look at it every Sunday, and it matters. It matters what your life's going to be like the next week, doesn't it, Stephanie? But scoreboards matter, and they are also inspirational. And I think academic scoreboards and fitness scoreboards really matter in lives. And we're going to work to make sure that parents and students have good factual information about their level of fitness and their health, both academically and athletically in that area. That's going to take a culture change, is it not? We're not used to doing that. It's going to take a cultural change, and we all know that those don't come easy. But we've assembled a group that I believe is up to the challenge of beginning to change the culture one by one school at a time, one coach at a time, that can teach us and to lead us. And we're excited about the pilot product that we got coming. But this is really about building a culture of activity in our kids, getting away from the television and the video screens that occupy much of their time, and keeping the activity up. And it is the best way that we can combat childhood obesity, a growing epidemic that will not go away without targeted, intentional, purposeful efforts to turn back that tide. And it affects, as you will hear tonight, so many lives, young lives, and frankly, it will have and has had a huge impact on our economy, the healthcare cost of our country and our families, and it will become increasingly so if we don't stem that tide. In fact, I think these gentlemen tonight will persuade us that it also has some relationship with our economic prosperity and viability in the future regarding the way our bodies operate and generate the ideas and innovation that our minds can create in this very globally competitive world. So the SHAPE partnership will be a powerful tool to improve the quality of so many young lives and demonstrates really what's possible when many people come together, public and private partners unite together around a common cause that is right and needs to be done. So I want to thank so many who have helped to bring this to fruition tonight, and thank you all for coming here. And it really has to reach behind even the people who have created this idea and who are in the room tonight. We've got to be evangelistic about this. That's what Dr. Ken Cooper has been doing for 40 years in this effort. And I think we owe it to him, and his lifetime career has been dedicated to fitness. And that's why today we joined with him and with others to create in Georgia the Governor's Council on Physical Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition, all linked together. People have asked me about my recent shape. Speaking of shapes, and I tell them I discovered a very fantastic secret physics formula, Dr. Rady. It's called input minus output equals what's left. And that works. And so we've got to work on both ends of that, and we'll get that great equation on the right-hand side. So tonight, I can tell you, you're in for a real treat. I've not known Dr. Cooper as long as Arthur has, but I've known of him. And looking at that first book, I think I was really in the Air Force, maybe just as you had come out, Dr. Cooper, and kind of coined that word aerobics. And now, through the Cooper Institute, he has given us an instrument of measurement that will be simple and easy for teachers and adults and parents to understand about their children. And some people talk about, well, that's a delicate subject. Folks, we can no longer afford to hide behind the delicacy of saying that we need better fitness in America. And that's a simple fact. And it's time that we put up on the scoreboard where we are. This Fitnessgram assessment tool is not going to be only used in Georgia, but will be one of 3 to 5 states beginning there, cities as well as other systems across the country. I've got to tell a cute story about Dr. Cooper before I get down here today, because he was kind enough, as we were working on this 3 years ago, he said, you need to come out there and let me check you out. So I'd heard about his famous clinic, the Cooper Clinic. So Arthur, I went out, and he probed and prodded and looked in places I didn't even know you could look around my physical health. And the good news was, I went in and sat down with him. He was a great exit interview over all the results that his clinic had done. That is just tremendous. And he looked down the list and he said, well, you know, things look pretty good, Governor. You're in pretty good health except for one thing. And I said, well, Doc, what's that? I was fearing the worst. He said, you're just fat. So he may have been a little more delicate than that, but I got the message. And so that woke me up, and I determined then that I wanted to live long and finish strong, as we've talking about here among that. I just have not met Dr. Rady until tonight, but I feel like I know him because I've read his book as well, Spark. And I tell you, That is a great read for those of us who not only want to live long, but be able to think long as well. And the connection between the regeneration of our brain and all that biochemicals. Dr. Rady, I'm a veterinarian, and I know a little bit about biochemistry, but I just skipped over all that biochem stuff in there. I mean, you really dive deep into that, but it is the research and the science is there about how complex our bodies are made and how our activity level fits in with our brain capacity to make a beautiful thing, both living, moving, and thinking in a long and strong way. So I appreciate the research from these two gentlemen. I appreciate their passion and their effort about making sure that we're serious, that this is a national, let me just say, I think it's a national security issue. We don't want to be a country of slobs that are ineffective and cannot think and defend ourselves for the future of our children and grandchildren. Now, Mary and I, we got a football team, Arthur, and I'm expecting a kicker in October, so we'll have 12. And I want to live long and strong to play with them, but make sure they are able to do the same thing. So I'm delighted to be here with you. I'm glad you're here tonight to hear this great message. I'm looking to be absolutely fascinated. Dr. Cooper's teased me with this little data, there, so he's kind of kept it under wraps, and I'm looking forward to seeing it tonight because I'm convinced, knowing what these two guys do, it'll be absolutely persuasive and hopefully influential in our lives as well as the lives of our state and our children. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Governor Perdue. We appreciate your leadership on this issue of childhood obesity and all of the hard work of your staff and the staffs of the Department of Education and Community Health, with state agencies working together and with all of us pulling in the same direction. We can change lives. Your energy behind this issue will be a legacy for generations of Georgia's children. I'm Penny McPhee, the president of the Arthur Blank Family Foundation. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you here this evening and to introduce our two speakers. Those of you in the room will find a briefing materials at your table, and I encourage you to spend time learning about the work of these two men. They are far too accomplished for me to give the details of their biographies in my introduction this evening. You've already heard about Dr. Cooper being the founder of the wellness movement in America, the man who coined the term aerobics. You know about Dr. Rady's book, Spark, The Revolutionary New Science of Exercise and the Brain. The most important thing I can tell you is that with Dr. Cooper and Dr. Rady, we have covered every angle. Because in researching the connection between fitness levels and student success, Dr. Cooper examines patterns over millions of children, millions of students at a time. On the other hand, Dr. Rady drills down literally in his research to find out how one cell sends a message to another cell. So we've got the micro and the macro. From both, we have the same takeaway, that regular physical activity is not only good for our bodies, it's good for our brains, and it's good for overall student performance. So in a few minutes, you'll hear directly from Dr. Rady about his latest research. And then following Dr. Rady's remarks, we'll have time for questions from all of you. It is my pleasure now to introduce Dr. Cooper. He, as you've heard, has a long relationship with the Blank family, with the Blank Foundation, and now going forward with the state of Georgia. Thank you, Ken.
Penny, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here, and Governor, I'm so proud of you. I didn't say you were fat. I said the next time I see you, I want to see less of you. That's what I said. And 30 pounds off, I'm very proud of you. Arthur, wonderful friend, appreciate your support. Stephanie, Penny, you all been great. It's going to be fun. to share our studies here tonight with you for the next 30 minutes. Because I'm sharing with you what we decided to do in Texas back a few years ago to counteract one of our major problems in Texas, and that's childhood obesity and diabetes. It's a rampant epidemic that no one's paying attention to. So we started with the help of many people to establish the Texas Youth Evaluation Project, and first of all, how to determine how do we do it and use the body mass index. Now, as many of you know, that's the government standard. Now, to determine that, it's weight in pounds divided by your height in inches times 703, or your percent body fat, as we use in working with children. With adults, it's less than 25 is normal, above 30 is obese, above 35 is morbidly obese. Our results of our adults now runs about 67% of our adults are overweight or obese, of which some 36% are obese. It's been getting dramatically worse since 1990, when only 40% of our Americans are overweight or obese, now close to 70%. But the problem is, too, is the baby boomers from 1968 to 1990 led a revolution in which we dropped our deaths from heart disease by 48% during that 22-year period, but after 1990, they stopped or slowed down, and they didn't bring their kids along with them. So what we use now, the top 5 percentile is called obese, the top 15 percentile is overweight or obese. All right, if you go back to 1963, you find we only had roughly 4% of our children 6 to 19 years of age that were obese, the top 5 percentile. But you got close to 2004, and now 2010, we're right at 20% are obese. That means 40% are overweight or obese, of which 68% will be obese as adults, and we don't change that. So it's a dramatic epidemic that we're seeing, and according to this particular statement, obesity rates for children at 6 to 11 years of age have increased from 15.1 to 18%, according to the Health and Human Services. And they say at the bottom there that it's going to be 20% by 2010, and that's exactly what we are. And you see that Georgia ranks second in children 10 to 17 years of age, being 21.9%. They predicted 20%. Multiply that by 2, you got 40% of your children in Georgia from 6 to 19 years of age that are overweight or obese. We find Georgia's number 2, Mississippi number 1, and I can't be proud of Texas, they're number 7. If you look at the other part of this statement, according to one estimate, insured children treated for obesity are approximately 3 times more expensive for the health system than the average insured child. All right, just today, I saw this in USA Today, in talking about the cost of obesity and just being overweight in adults. And what it says specifically, it says that women, it costs you $4,879 more per year if you're overweight, and men, $2,646 per year if you're overweight. Now, if you're obese. Now, if you're overweight, it's less than that. It's costing us an arm and a leg, the cost of obesity in this country. So we finally looked at this in Texas, and you see the 4th graders, the 8th graders, and the 11th graders, that's the total number of overweight or obese. And as I told you, 60 to 70% of these children become obese as adults. A deplorable statistic. There's an epidemic of adult onset diabetes being seen in children. It's estimated that among children born in the year 2000, 1 out of 3 will become diabetic sometime in their life. 23 million diabetics in America today. By the time those kids born in the year 2000 get 40 or 50 years of age, we're going to have 100 million diabetics in this country, 1/3 of our population. Hard to accept that, isn't it? And if they develop adult onset diabetes before they're 14 years of age, it's estimated they shorten their lifespan by 17 to 27 years. As a result, this may be the first generation in which parents live longer than their children. We're already beginning to see that. They predicted life expectancy now is 77.9 years. By the year 2050, it'll be 82 years. It'll be 72 years. Already in this section of the United States, we're beginning to see a drop-off in life expectancy. The southeastern part of the country has the highest incidence of obesity, the highest incidence of adult onset diabetes, highest incidence of heart disease, the highest obesity in children, and the highest Medicare expenses. All works together, doesn't it? It's not rocket science. It's not so much we die, we're killing ourselves. So we are very concerned about this. All right, now the other thing that's happening too is that rising in every group. This 2010, the heaviest are black teenage girls and Hispanic teenage boys. It's not going down, it is going up. We've been involved in California since 1999, trying to see if there's a relationship between levels of fitness and academic achievement. Now, we use the TAC score in Texas. In California, they use the Stanford Achievement Test to measure academic achievement. We looked at that and then looked at the Fitnessgram. Now, I'm so proud to be a part of this program today because we implemented the Fitnessgram testing this morning for these 5 schools by 250,000 students. And we're excited for you all to have this pilot study starting today, or starting now, and then next year, 2011, 2012, it'll go statewide. You'll be the second state really to do this. If you're following our example, I've been beating my head against the wall, trying to get states to do what we've done in Texas because the results you're going to see are spectacular. All right, we have used the Fitnessgram. Now, the Fitnessgram consists of 6 things. Now, for the elementary schools, we use a PACER test. It's a 20-meter or 15-meter run. For the junior high school and high school, use a 1-mile run or the walk test. That's number 1. Number 2 is body composition, measured preferably by skin fold test, if not body mass index. Next is muscular strength. This is abdominal strength by sit-ups. And then we look at back strength by the flexion test. We look at the upper body strength by the push-ups. And then we look at flexibility and stretching. 6 different things. Now, you don't pass or fail this test. You press begin this report card. You don't pass or fail. What you get is you end up in the healthy fitness zone. That's the blue part out here. And this needs improvement. There's no pass or fail. Needs improvement, healthy fitness zone. Now, you get this report card, you send home to the parents, and you'll see if that child does not get into the healthy fitness zone, they'll have information on the report card telling you what to do. It's a report card like you have for academics, what you've been doing for 19 years. It's the same thing. Because we know to change lifestyles, you have to do 4 things. Number 1, evaluate. Find out what the problem is. Number 2, educate and motivate. Number 3, implement programs that are safe, effective, and realistic. And number 4, reevaluate. I've done this with patients for the last 40 years. We get results. We're doing it with children now, that 4-step approach. So we evaluate. That was our step. If you notice up here, there is a Play 60. And I'm so happy because of Arthur and others here tonight that we're now being funded by NFL. And we're delighted about this. 32 franchise cities. There'll be 35 organizations in each city will be participating in this program. We'll have some 1,100 schools involved in this program. And NFL is putting money into this. I couldn't get the government to put any money into it. But we're getting NFL, we're getting United Way. They're beginning to catch it, get involved in this program. So I'm so proud of that. And we know now, too, that if you're not in a franchise city and you don't have availability of this, be involved in this program, we have a waiting list. If you call that number, then you get on the waiting list, and we have over 100 cities now on the waiting list. They want to get involved in the NFL program. So again, it's an exciting thing, and this man started it really right there, Arthur Blank. It's grown so fast that we're now going international. And we have our Fitnessgram program is being translated into Chinese, into Korean, Japanese, Spanish, and I was in Brazil about a month ago, and now in Portuguese. As we travel around and give these results, people say, I'm shocked, I can't believe this. We got to do what you're doing in Texas, but not other states in the United States. All right, now this is the translation that we use, and now you see where we are as a spot around the world already. And I'm happy to announce I've been invited to go to China. I'll be leaving the 18th of October to be the keynote speaker at the first international conference in Nanjing, China, International Conference on Child Obesity, Inactivity, and Diabetes. Now, the Chinese are so interested in this because they're having an obesity problem too, but they're way behind. But they're sharp enough to know if they're going to do something now, that's going to protect them in the future. We're already behind the 8 ball. We've got to start in the rears and try to change this. And I'll be speaking to the Vice Minister of China on this project within the next 2 or 3 weeks. You know what's disturbing? You see this relationship you'll see between academic achievement, all these things we're seeing, and we're sitting back and watch the rest of the world pass us by. I worry about that. With the economies of the world already, we're getting behind. But we got to plan for the future. We can't rely upon what's happening to the adults. It's our children that we are so concerned about. Okay, now in California, we've been doing this since 1999. All right, here's an example of 2004 where we looked at math scores versus the number of tests that children could pass on the Fitnessgram test. All right, that is math. This is English language. There's 1 million kids in this study. This is 5th, 7th, and 9th grade kids. The same thing we find in the younger children. This is 4th grade, 5th grade students, and grade 5, and we find the same relationship in English language arts, levels of fitness, Fitnessgram tests, unless they eat the National School Lunch Program. Look at that right there. Tragic, isn't it? What are they getting? French fried potatoes, chicken strips, and pizza is what they're getting. And look how they perform. We've got a second project now, it's being funded by the Department of Agriculture, called the Nutrigram. We'll take this equipment into the school, and we'll be able to evaluate the food service and make strong recommendations how to change this. Because you're not going to control the obesity problem strictly getting people back into school. You've got to get control of their diets. In school, out of school. When I started this program in Texas, I got bombed by the parents because you're trying to invade our home, our privacy, our life by getting the government involved in my child, the weight, the fitness, the activity of our child. I said, we wouldn't have done that, but you have failed miserably. Somebody has to do that. And I'm very pleased in our third year of studies, we no longer have any complaints from parents. They're caught up in this movement now in Texas. All right, we find too that in California, this is in 2006, when they tested their 5th, 7th, and 9th graders, 1.3 million students, only 25% could pass all 6 Fitnessgram tests, and 40% could walk around the mile in a lot of time. And so in 2006, they allowed an extra 40 million for physical education teachers and 500 million for fitness supplies. What have you done in Georgia? What have you done in California? Nothing. They couldn't get it funded. They passed the law, but it wouldn't fund it. They're getting as bad a shape as we are, unfortunately. All right, now this example, what you can do, you have a good program. This is a private school in Dallas. Now, when you get them involved in a good program, you don't get that straight line relationship. You get a block relationship, and they had 62% of the people to pass all 6, and then 92% passed at least 5, and look at their program. Look what they do. 3 through K, 25 minutes twice a week, 1 to 4, 30 minutes 5 times a week, 45 minutes 5 times a week, 45 minutes 7, 8, 8 to 12, they got a program. We have programs only in Texas from K until 8, nothing 9, 10, 11, or 12, and that is a problem. Why is there this relationship? This may be an idea. Published in the American Journal of Pediatrics a few years ago. Looked at the Prader-Willi syndrome. That's a syndrome where children are morbidly obese by the time they're 5 or 6 years of age. They usually die before 10 or 11 unless they change their habits and control their obesity. They had children and adults in this study. Average age was 10, oldest was 30, and they never got above the moron level as far as their IQ. They thought it's because of genetic deficiency. So there's some siblings. Nothing wrong with this child except just way overweight before they're 6 years of age. Here's his brothers and sisters. They followed them as adults too, and they're slightly above the moron level as compared to their siblings' normal weight, normal IQs. And you look at that and look at this. Discovered a link between marked obesity in toddlers and lower IQ scores, cognitive delays, and brain lesions similar to those seen in Alzheimer's disease patients, already in children. The child that is fat and inactive in the early years of life, their brains don't develop. And John will be talking about that. We talked about this earlier today too. If that child is allowed to be obese before they're 5 or 6 years of age, they'll have about 40 million or billion cells, fat cells. If they don't, they'll have 3 times that number. So that child that is obese early in life, they'll have so many fat cells, they'll have a tremendous difficulty the rest of their life of losing weight. Because, see, you all have the fat cells. When you get fat, you don't increase fat cells. That's determined early in life. But you increase the size of the cell. It packs more fat into it. You lose weight, it goes down. If you've got twice as many, 3 times as many fat cells because of your obesity during your youth, you're going to have a terrible problem the rest of your life. This is what John will be talking about in a few minutes. I would add this, that we found immediately after vigorous exercise, areas of the brain most perfused with blood and oxygen are those responsible for creativity and memory. This isn't just our work. Look at all the studies here showing the relationship between academic and physical activity. The literature is full of that now. Studied in Kansas City, looking at 4th and 5th graders. They're involved in a PE for Life program, and what we did measure the beginning of the year and the end of the year, and look what happened to their performance. They increased their sit and reach by 60%, their aerobic capacity by 170%, and their body strength by 433% one school year. That was in the fall of the year to the next spring. These are fifth graders showed that much improvement. And look what happened too. Incidents, violence in the schools dropped tremendously, as you can see here. In fact, the principal said this, PE for Life has had tremendous influence on the lives of our students. It's not just the increased levels of fitness we're seeing in our kids, everyone is excited. Students are also more motivated throughout the day, abstinence way up, and the discipline issues are way down. We tested 2.6 million children in Texas the first go-around back in 2008, and Dallas had some of the worst statistics, 168,000 students. So I asked the superintendent, Hinosa, I want you to give me 40 students who as seniors barely made it, academically, flunked the Fitnessgram test. I want the worst kids you can give me. The gang kids, drug kids, problem kids, whatever. They give me what I wanted. 20 boys and 20 girls. They came out that first day and I shook their hand, I went back and washed my hands. I mean, they were amazing kids. They didn't want to be there. I bussed them out there for a boot camp. 75 minutes twice a week is all we did. 10 weeks and 77% improvement performance. In 10 weeks with 75 minutes twice a week coming out to our center in Dallas. But the most exciting thing was this. Look at their response. I've lost 6 pounds already after 2 weeks of the program. Do we get to keep coming back in December? I need this program for my life. I don't know if you have to do this on my own. These are high school seniors now. Without you guys, I might end up dead in a ditch somewhere. But now I'm getting healthy and I'm taking care of myself. Can we bring friends to join the program next semester? I have some people who'd like to come. We would like additional information on nutrition. How can I eat healthy? These are seniors now. When I have to eat what my mom buys. I need to learn ways to make healthy choices. Please, please let's come back in January. I said this last night. Hope we can come back and continue to work together and motivate each other. I like this one. We're on this journey together. We won't let each other fail. This experience is going to make us friends for life. We're going to get healthy together, and we have made a bond that will never go away. 10 weeks. Attitude change. Fitness improved dramatically. It's the brain we're talking about. We have 3 million kids in Texas, 3rd to 12th grade. What if every child in Texas went through that program in 10 weeks? What would happen to drug and gang problems and all that? You can't argue with that. Back in 2007, we passed a bill to bring PE back in the schools of Texas the first time in 20 years. Because with no child left behind, they eliminated PE and brought in math and science and reading. With expectation, it would increase their grades if they did that. So I started arguing with the school teachers, principals, and all these people, trying to get PE back in, trying to get this bill passed. The teachers, the superintendents, the art teachers, music teachers, they fought us tooth and nail. They thought they were going to lose their jobs. There was no room for it. What are we going to eliminate, get PE back in the school? To the contrary, the medical facility, the medical officers, the Diabetes Association, Heart Association, they wanted it. I'm a legislator. Sorry to say this, Governor, but what do you want primarily as a legislator? To be reelected. So we have both sides. We got this group that is very much against it. We got this group that really wants it. And so since both sides vote, they pass a mandate without funding. You know what that is? So what happens then, you tell these people 95% aren't funded, don't worry about it. You tell these people that I tried my best. They forgot one important thing, me. I testified 4 times for the legislature. It's cost us $3 million to equip 9,000 schools and train 20,000 teachers to get this program underway. And in 3 months, we raised $3.1 million. Shocked the people to death we did this. And boy, it caused a turnaround. We found that the Senate bill required K through 5, 30 minutes 5 times a week, 45 minutes twice a week, 25 minutes as you see here. Requirements in the beginning in 2007, all students 3 to 12 must be required to take the Fitnessgram test. What happened? Front page, Dallas Morning News. First test. A backward lunge, kids in sad shape. We found in looking at 2.6 million children, 3rd graders, a simple test, getting the healthy fitness zone, 3rd graders, girls 33%, boys 28%, and every grade it went down. And less than 10% of high school seniors can pass this simple test. That is a national disaster, a national tragedy. All right, we've now finished our testing in 2008, 2009, 2010. I'm sorry to say that we haven't seen any significant improvement. If you take the girls in 2008, you see a 33, you see a 36, you see a 32, very slight improvement. Down here you see the boys 17, and you see 20 and 21.7. Why? Because you can't just test, you've got to get people involved in programs. If you take the same child, though, you find that there's a 4th grader and a 5th grader and a 6th grader. These boys actually went down, as you see here. 9, 10, 11, and 12 don't have anything to expect that, and then girls show the same thing. The point is, you can't just test. We've done this in California now since 1999. There's been no improvement in all these years in the 5th and 6th and the students because there's no programs in the school. Too tough. That's what I heard. El Paso is one of the poorest areas in the state of Texas, heavily Hispanic. And we looked at their testing, 25,000 boys, and we found that they had 55% to pass the test in El Paso, statewide 27, 53, 20, 55 versus 17, 44 versus 17. Look at their girls, you find 69% versus 32, 63 versus 27. I mean, they're poor kids. They're indigent kids. Very poor area, heavily Hispanic. Why? And the answer is a darn good fitness program by Don Disney, one of the best in the country. I couldn't get 30 minutes 5 days a week. Look what they have in El Paso, K through 5, 45 minutes taught by a certified PE teacher. Don't have those in Texas anymore. United States Tennis Association, recess. Only 13% of the schools have recess anymore. Grades 7 and 8, 50 minutes or 90 minutes every other day. Don't tell me it can't be done. They've given us the example of what can be done. We have these things available at the Texas Education Agency to look at. Because once the program is so successful, the teachers want to know, will you compare fitness with this and this and this? I said, all these things are available. We can test that. What do you want us to test? Number 1, absenteeism. Why? School gets paid the number of days the kids are in school. Number 2, drugs and game problems. Number 3 is academics. That order. So we took the challenge. Also hit the front page of the Dallas Morning News. What did we discover? We discovered attendance rates versus cardiovascular fitness and body mass index, highly correlated, high levels of fitness associated with better school attendance. We looked at academic performance, highly correlated, not with strength or flexibility, but cardiovascular fitness and body mass index, beautifully related. And then look what we found with gangs and drugs. Just the reverse. At the press conference in Austin, I presented this data. And I challenged the press. I said, if you look at this data, these are scientific facts based upon 2.6 million kids, very accurately tested, and said there's no room for PE in the schools. You're ignoring the facts or you're very stupid. That's right. And we just keep ignoring that. We classify schools in Texas as being exemplary, recognized, acceptable, unacceptable. That's been done for years based upon the TAC scores, academic scores, and for the first time, we looked at cardiovascular fitness. That's what the red line is. Perfectly correlated. And already we've seen schools, in the last 3 years, have gone from unacceptable to acceptable, and in every case, their cardiovascular fitness has gone up. It's not rocket science, I keep saying. It's just doing something. We're looking now at foreign countries. We're looking at states. I'm very happy to have Georgia involved. I'll be looking forward to your first results. We'll compare your results with our results, and I hope you beat us, because we sure have had any success in Texas. I think you will. But the final thing, though, we've looked at is we have capability in Texas to look at all 254 counties. Now, we looked at fitness, cardiovascular fitness, and TAC scores in all these counties, and what you want is a green block with a small dot in the center. That means you pass both. A red block with a big dot means you plunk both. Nothing consistent here, but if you look along the Rio Grande Valley, look at that. The highest incidence of adult onset diabetes in children, the highest incidence of steatohepatitis is along the valley there among the Hispanic population until you go all the way out here to El Paso, Texas. That's my message. What can we do about it? Well, we better do something fast. My goal from the beginning was to start a fitness movement spread around the country. This is going back many years. Compare fitness levels, reevaluate. That's what we're doing, all sponsored by our research institute. It's a challenge I haven't seen in my lifetime. People say your legacy will be aerobics. 42 years ago, 19 books, people dying around the world. That won't be your legacy. That'll pass. But what we can do now, what you can do, what your schools, what your legislators can do, if we concentrate on this thing and get those kids back in shape, start a movement in Georgia like we started in Texas. We're going to change this in Texas, I'll guarantee you, because I want to stay ahead of the Chinese. I feel like I'm collaborating with the enemy. I saw a report from China and said the Chinese people are very concerned about the fact that their kids are so fat they couldn't protect themselves against invasion from the Japanese. True. But they look forward, look ahead. And so that's what we've got to do. I thank you for being here. I thank all of you for supporting us. And I wish you the best. I'm looking forward to those comparisons in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me, but after following 3 evangelistic speakers, you're going to have to put up with a northern, Harvard guy who's going to talk to you a little bit about how exercise affects the brain. Now, I've been an evangelist actually for the last 3 years, traveling around the country and now around the world, trying to get exercise back into our schools, because I see this is the area that we have to hit. Can't work with the parents like the governor was saying about the seatbelts, the same thing with smoking. We know that happened because the kids were going home and said, Mom, you can't smoke here. I'm going to get secondhand smoke. You got to smoke outside. We've cut the smoking problem in half because of the school programs. And so I've been very passionate about getting fitness back into schools and looking at it from the brain's perspective. And part of it, my journey was helped by my Jack Russell, who I came up with a great creative name for him and called him Jack. After a 3-mile run, you're more creative, right? So I came home and I figured that's a great name. But Jack, when we got him, those of you who don't know Jack Russells, all of them have attention deficit disorder. I've written 3 books on attention deficit disorder and know a lot about it and spent a lot of my life studying it. And Jack really exemplifies an ADD kid. We took him to the vet, and he was diagnosed and suggested that we put him on Ritalin. I said, no, we're not going to. No, we're going to start him on an exercise program. So we did. And it consists of me going out with Jack with 3 balls, throwing him up the hill. Jack goes running up the hill and brings it back down, and he won't let go. That's why I bring 3 balls, right? And he won't now. He's a smart guy, wants to be compliant, but not a Jack Russell. They're not letting go. So then I toss the other one, and he drops it, and then I throw it up the hill, and he goes up. And he's always much better when he's running. So he'll be back later to help out here. But I started worrying about this. Well, why is exercise so important to us? And, we need to be moving. I went to Boston in the 70s, right at the beginning of the marathon movement, and been there ever since. And everybody was running, and I started seeing patients who got hurt with a knee and an ankle, and they'd come in depressed, and, because they weren't running anymore, and they'd never had stopped running. And then a couple came in and said, look, I have adult onset attention problems now. And these were professors at Harvard and MIT who had to stop running because of an injury. So I got really invested in looking at what exercise is about. And I came up with the idea, and a lot of us have, that we really evolved to be movers. We were hunter-gatherers only 10,000 years ago. We were moving, on average, between 10 and 14 miles a day. That's only 10,000 years ago. Our genes, which guide sort of the script for our bodies and our brains haven't changed all that much. So in that period of time, so we're really geared to be moving all the time. But guess what? Now our culture has jumped, right? Our culture has just evolved so quickly and so fast. And especially in the last 40 years, it's changed enormously. We have these cyber slaves, I call them, because they do everything for us. Think about it. Think about the microwave, how that's changed everything. My mom used to be up all the time cooking, right? And then I had to wash the dishes. But anyway, no dishwasher, of course. But that's just one minor thing. And now we have so many gadgets and so many toys. And our cyber slaves are there to do our work and entertain us. And that's a problem because we haven't evolved with that. We've become the sedentary culture, and this is we're in a situation. What I say is we're amusing ourselves to death, and I think we really are, unless we can change the culture, which is very hard to do, because people are so set in their ways. But the only way is to address it in the school systems, and so. Only brain side you're going to see, so don't worry. I've written a bunch of books on the brain and how it works and all that, but just to show you, the red area there is called the motor cortex. Everything in front of that evolved to help us be better movers. That's the front part of our brain. That's what grew as we became more and more human. The front part of our brain, behind your forehead. And with that, we became better at moving, adapting, being more discreet, definitive, more planful, evaluating consequences, and remembering how we did it the last time. Imagination started, and we began to think. So our moving brain led us to our thinking brain, such that one of our very hard-edged neuroscience guys, almost 10 years ago now, said, that which we call thinking is the internalization of movement in the brain. So that we don't see it that way, because we think with just our heads and our brains, but we're missing the point that our thinking brain is really so attached to movement. And we know this from eons of work now in various fields. Now, when we were hunter-gatherers, we evolved these genes called thrifty genes, okay? Thrifty genes. And they drive us to do two things. One, eat the highest caloric food that we can find. Why? Because hunter-gatherers, they might starve tomorrow. They might be 40 miles from the next berry patch, or the next antelope might take a week. So they were looking for high caloric food, which is why we like the 5 stacks and and McDonald's and everything else. We want the high caloric food. The second thing that the thrifty genes do is that when we're safe and when we have know we're going to have a food supply, take a break. Just relax. Just save it. In other words, store it. Keep it there for us. This is the problem of our obesity crisis today. Both that we're driven to that high caloric food, and we're sitting. And boy, are we sitting. And it's led to a whole series of lifestyle diseases. Dr. Cooper and I have been talking about it all day long. That the top 10 killers in the United States, okay, are really lifestyle diseases, either caused directly by our lifestyle or fed. Even the cancers now, we know, can be prevented by lifestyle changes, many of them, and certainly helped along the way. The articles are coming out all the time now. That's one of the most important things in cancer treatment, is getting people to move and stay moving. Who would have thought that? But the physical problems, the medical problems, our lifestyle problems in the main for us. And, you know, we're talking about diabetes. When I was a medical student, which admittedly was a long, long time ago, diabetes type 2 was an interesting disorder. And for a medical student, an interesting disorder means one you didn't see a lot of, and you wanted to follow them. You wanted to know about it. It was an interesting disorder. Cardiovascular disease wasn't very interesting because we saw it all the time. But diabetes type 2 was very interesting, so we wanted to follow those patients so we'd learn about it. Now, that's all we got. That's the whole thing. Now people, as we age, you know, oh, you're over 50, what's your sugar level? You know, I mean, what are you taking for it? Kind of thing. Everybody expects that it goes along with it. It didn't used to be like that. My area, I'm a psychiatrist, apologize, but, and I've been studying for years ADHD, anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, addictions, and stress problems. And all of those are increasing, on the increase. Depression's going to outstrip almost diabetes and other kind of lifestyle problems soon around the world. The numbers are so high. All of them are partly fed by, caused by, pushed by our sedentary lifestyle, such that about 5 years ago, the National Institute of Medicine came up with a new diagnosis called sedentaryism that sort of encapsulates or covers most of our diseases of today. And diabetes, as I say, was something that was rare that, compared to today. And now we know so much. And one of the things that most people in this room are worried about is losing your mind, is losing your brain, is losing, you know, your ability to think, right? And I could scare you with all kinds of slides, but I won't. But one of the things we know is that being overweight, being obese, then having diabetes really makes the process of cognitive decline go rapidly, very, very rapid. Such that some centers who focus on Alzheimer's disease, who are studying it, call it diabetes type 3. It's so connected with the way our brain begins to erode because we have too much stuff, too much sugar, too much fat in our system. So we have to exercise, like our friend here, and you know, it's what we sort of have to fit it in somehow, or you know. But what we know is that there are lots of studies that have come out in the past 15 years showing that exercise prevents what we call cognitive decline. If you are middle-aged and you haven't been exercising 3 to 4 times a week or any time, you begin 4 times a week for 40 minutes at moderate intensity. The studies show that you will prevent the onset of cognitive decline by 10 to 15 years. Similarly, some studies show that if you begin then, if you begin in middle age even, and you haven't been exercising, and you begin to do it just the same rate and level and intensity, you can cut the risk of Alzheimer's disease up to a half. And that's saying something. Then we have studies now. We have lots and lots of studies showing this. One of the things that got me so intrigued is really after 1995, there was an explosion of articles. Every day, every week, there are more and more articles out on how exercise affects the brain. And this group in Illinois really did a lot of the good work. And they looked at a bunch of 69-year-olds, began to exercise them, and looked over a 6-month period of time versus a group that didn't. What the colors up there, the yellow and the blue, and those brain slices, sort of combination of all the different brains of these exercising 69-year-olds, those areas are not brain erosion, which one would expect your brain to erode over time. Those are areas of brain growth. So what we're talking about is the brain regrowing or growing more vigorous with exercise. So this is really, really exciting. However, I stole this slide from Dr. Cooper, and this is a slide from the University of Florida, the medical genetics department, which he already talked about, but it's really important. If you think about it, if you have a morbidly obese child at the age of 4, and compare him to his normal weight sib, they're going to have, their IQ is going to be 30 points less. Now, this study came out in 2005. At the end of 2009, I talked to Daniel Driscoll, who's the head of the medical genetics department there, and they had doubled the numbers. It was more intense. The statistics were that much better, and the differences were about the same, actually a little more than 30-point difference. He's feeling, and he's a medical geneticist, so they did every genetic test under the sun, ruled out any kind of complication. So he said that the reason why these kids had their IQ less is because of being morbidly obese. And that should really scare the heck out of us, because the statistics are that Dr. Cooper was showing, but even last year, kindergartners going into kindergarten across the United States, 1 in 5 of our kindergartens were obese. 1 in 5. It's huge. It's a tsunami that is here. It's not even coming. It's here. And what they found in some of these brains, these kids, as they followed them throughout their life into their 6, 7, and 9, and 10, they found pictures in their MRI at the age of 8, 9, and 10 that looked like Alzheimer's disease in 8-year-olds. Think about it. It really, really is impressive. And a big part of the problem is that our kids are sitting and sitting and sitting. We have so many toys, parents that can worry about things like, keeping their kids safe. They don't want them to go out playing so much because Law and Order keeps repeating and everybody has a serial killer on the corner. It just, people are so overprotective. We have this boy in the bubble syndrome where you can't challenge your kid. Everybody gets a trophy for breathing. It's really something. Everybody has to win all the time, I mean, what's that about? But we're keeping our kids sitting. Kids come to school, they don't know how to play, so there's $18 million given to PlayWorks in San Francisco. What are they doing? They're hiring college graduates to teach kids how to play on the playground around the country, because the kids don't know how to play, because they're not playing. Because what they know how to text, they know how to play on their video games, but they don't know how to do this interactive play business, which is so important for brain health and brain growth. It is a problem, let me tell you, a huge problem in our schools right now. And of course, this is another problem that we have, that, I go to a bunch of gyms, and there's one that has a parking area for about 40 cars right in front of the door, and then you have to walk about 20 yards, and there's a parking area for 100 cars. Well, invariably, I come in there and park my car and walk up, and there are 2 or 3 SUVs waiting for an open space right near the door. That's what we've evolved to. That's what we think. It's something else. That being fit is something else, and we have to fit it in. Now, exciting stuff has just come out. This is not published yet, but I have the paper. And this is looking at the brains of children who are fit and non-fit. And they basically see in their study, in about 50 kids, half fit, half unfit, those kids that were fit, they had the areas of their brain that were bigger than those that were unfit. And an area of the brain that's really important for learning and memory is called the hippocampus. Very sensitive, that's where we grow new brain cells. Well, the fit kids, their hippocampi were bigger. They were bigger. And guess what? Their memory scores were much better than the unfit kids. And so this is the first time we've had it in children. We've had lots of stuff in adults showing this kind of stuff, but not in kids before. And the same way, areas of the brain that are used for thinking are actually bigger in the fit kids than they are in the non-fit kids. So those that are fit have bigger brains where they're needed. And that's what we have to pay attention to. Now there's Jack, and I told you he likes to play and everything. Well, play is really important. I've just really been into this whole area since my book has come out. I've learned a lot more about play. We know a lot about play. We know a lot about how play affects the brain. We know that every mammalian species needs to play. We come out of the womb expecting to play. It's an essential nutrient. And if we don't play, guess what? Our brains are smaller. We do less well on test scores. We don't interact well with the others. We become bullies or bullied. These are animal studies and human studies. Dr. Stuart Brown wrote a great book called Play that summarizes this data, and he and I are working on another book together. Because play is so important, and our kids are not playing. They're just not doing it. Now, this illustrates how biologically driven play is. This is a scenario up in the tundra up in Manitoba. A guy was out there with his huskies and brought a photographer along just to take pictures of his great huskies. And what happens? At dusk one night, comes running into camp this 1,200-pound male starving polar bear. The ice floes hadn't closed up there, and he hadn't been to get to his seal pups. So this guy comes running, and he's going to have dinner, right? Well, the husky close in the picture there, said to be the dumbest of the group, instead of being afraid and wanting to protect himself, thought, well, this is a perfect time to play with this guy. So he gets in the universal play position, right? Which is back bowed, tail up, wagging, mouth open, fangs covered. And this is what happened. They began to play. And what we know is that the need to play is hardwired in. It is so primitive that it can even overcome the hunger that this polar bear had. And so it just illustrates our need for playing. And now the medical schools, we're beginning to look at play. Recess. The Albert Einstein Medical School looked at 3 years of fourth graders, 13,000 of them, and looked at how much recess was necessary. Magic number, the tipping point, so-called, was found to be 30 minutes of recess was necessary for good comportment in the classrooms. The teachers felt that they were better attending and all that. Well, guess what? We're eliminating recess from our schools for many, many reasons. You know, reasons like, oh, the kids are too exuberant. Tag is a sexual assault. They're afraid of the lawyers being sued, and it's true. And so, but we need to sort of rethink things. And our culture allows us to think, oh, we're going to protect every kid all the time. Well, that ain't life. That's not what life is about. We've known since the Greeks that it's both the body and the brain together that are necessary. So we have to work on the body, and we have to see it as a part of the curriculum. And my book that I wrote, Spark, really was something that I've been planning for about 10 years, but it was stimulated and pushed by my experience with one school in Naperville, Illinois, which is 50 miles west of Chicago. The school system had 19,000 kids. I'd heard about it on the TV, and one of the originators of this program that had developed over 20 years at Naperville, Phil Lawler, had quoted me something that I had said 10 years before, and so I got very interested in that. And what was amazing about this school is that they had evolved a program of PE where it was every day. They were exercising. There was fitness-based PE. He had realized that he needed to change his tune 20 years before, away from sports and athletics, more focused on fitness. So he had his kids run, do calisthenics, the kind of different kinds of things to get them more fit. And then he had this brilliant idea. Well, the athletic kids are still getting the best grades because they're still finishing first or going the longest. But then he put on heart rate monitors, and that changed everything. Then he was evaluating kids on how much they worked, how much effort they were putting into it. And he graded them on how much they were in their cardiac training zone. And that just changed everything. The geeky kids, the out-of-shape kids were getting A's in PE. And this all became very, very infectious, like a virus throughout the school system. And what was impressive is that at that time, 33% of our kids in the country were overweight. Naperville, 3% of their children were overweight. 3%. Okay? But what got me on a plane to go there was the fact that 2 years before that, 98.8% of their kids took the International Science and Math Test, the TIMSS test. Every country, every 3 years, takes this test on science and math. The US is always in the teens somewhere, and countries like Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong are always number 1, 2, 3, 4 in the top 5 or so. They took it as a country. All their kids, essentially. They came in number 1 in the world in science and number 6 in math. So here they were spending 45 minutes a day in the PE program had evolved tremendously to be this state-of-the-art that's unbelievable, and it's been copied now and evolved many other programs like PE for Life and others that have come out of Naperville, because they know that getting our kids moving and keeping them moving has an effect on not just their physical health, but on their cognitive health, which we know. And Dr. Cooper mentioned even looking at it, Naperville is an upper middle class neighborhood, so they went to the inner city in Kansas City and they found the same kind of result. After a year of every day, not much equipment, just really getting the kids running every day for about 30 to 40 minutes, what did they find? They found, the Fitnessgram all changed, but the big thing was that this changed what they call disciplinary referrals, and as well as suspensions. This became infectious in Kansas City to a bunch of other schools, and eventually many of the schools there have an everyday PE program, or had one, and they were on track to get more. But then, of course, the superintendent got fired, and politics. It all changed. But they're still very much into it. And then the most poignant example to me is this school in Charleston, South Carolina, that bought into this whole thing, and they had one PE teacher. It was a charter school, all inner city kids who were bussed out into this one school. The PE teacher had one gymnasium, not much equipment, but begged and pleaded and convinced her principal to allow her to have these kids in grade 4 to 8 in the morning for 30 to 40 minutes every morning. All she did is put up 8 different stations in the gym, where one was basketball, another was jump rope, another was pogo sticks, another was Dance Dance Revolution, a machine to get you moving. And every 8 minutes or so, she'd blow her whistle, and the kids would have to change stations. Well, it was dramatic. The first 4 months of that year, compared to the year before, there was an 83% drop in disciplinary problems. 83% drop. Now, you all say, or some of you will, that, oh, they were burning off energy. No. They were turning on their brains. And that's the point. Because when you turn your brain on, you inhibit those impulses, that fidgetiness, that need to be moving and need to be uncooperative, and you improve everything, their attention system and the like. So that exercise decreases this impulsivity and decreases discipline problems. They saw an improvement in attendance, and just as Cooper High that Dr. Cooper was talking about, this is what happens in all the schools that we've been in, where we begin to change the program around, where PE is really about fitness first and getting everybody involved, because the problem often is the kids who aren't going to participate, and they're the ones that need it the most. So when you begin to do it for everyone, that's when you start getting real success stories. And this tremendous school over in Copenhagen, where I just was, had taken this idea, and one of the instructors caught on to it and convinced the principal to change the whole program around, let him run the PE program, gave him time, which is the biggest currency, the biggest problem in our schools for PE is time right now. To take time away from other things, to take time away from sitting for 90 minutes and learning. So what they did, he agreed the principal agreed to do it, so they took a little bit of time away, and what they found, this one teacher set up, brought in some spinning bikes and indoor rowing machines, so the kids did spinning on Monday, indoor rowing on Tuesday, hip-hop dancing on Wednesday, aerobic dancing on Thursday, and Friday they had Dr. Cooper's boot camp. Well, they found a tremendous increase in participation, absenteeism dropped, discipline problems dropped. There weren't so many at that time. But what was most important, and what gets him talking all over the European Union, is that the grade level that year in 250 students went up 1.5 letter grades. 1.5 letter grades in 250 students, just by having this very vigorous PE program. Now, out came last year a study out of Sweden that really proves it, okay? There they keep numbers. The North countries like to keep numbers on people. Well, they looked at 1.2 million boys who, when they graduated at the age of 15, they were given these tests. They were given a measure to evaluate their cardiac function. They evaluated their muscles a bit. They also did IQ test as well as cognitive learning test. Then they retested the kids in exactly the same way when they were 18 because they were entering military service, compulsory military service. What they found was that if the boy improved in their cardiovascular function, so did their intellectual function. If they stayed the same, they didn't improve. In this, over this period of time, there were 600 sets of identical twins, and us in science and medicine especially salivate when we talk about identical twins because they have the same genes. And so here is a environmental influence, right? It's the same thing held. If one of the twins improved cardiovascularly, their scores went up, whereas the other child who might not have improved stayed the same or got less good. Their IQs dropped a bit. So it really proves that in the high school, and you showed El Paso, I know a lot about El Paso with you, Dr. Cooper. El Paso had such good work up until 8th grade, and then they stopped the PE program. They stopped the time for PE, and then everything started to drop. Attendance dropped, discipline problems increased, and people stopped coming to school. So it is a very important time because they follow these kids afterwards, these Swedish kids. Those that improved in this time period had a higher academic achievement throughout their life and a higher socioeconomic standard. They were better in every way. And the CDC here in Atlanta has shown the same kind of thing, that the more activity the school has, it doesn't take away from academic achievement. In half the schools, It added to academic achievement in the other half of the schools. It didn't take away from it. There was only one negative finding in one school. So we want to create a whole new PE, a whole new respect, a whole new interest, a whole new way of looking at PE that we see in places like Naperville, where it's something that has a lot of status. They're no longer Rodney Dangerfield characters, the PE teachers. They're no longer without respect. They're very respected because they feel the school knows, the community knows that their active, very involved PE program is really leading them onto higher ground where we all need to go. And this past week, I started a nonprofit a while ago, but we just launched our website called sparkinglife.org. And sparkinglife.org is going to be a collection of all the materials that I'm talking about now and have talked about, but also the latest news on findings where exercise affects learning, our mood, anxiety, addictions, and aging. So we're going to hopefully be able to have a lot of video there, so people don't even have to think too much, because people don't like that. But it's something that I think is so necessary, and this is going to be an area where the PE teachers can go to get the information they need to advocate for themselves. And it's really important. And we're doing this to build educate the educators, because they're a hard group to change, as you might know. Anyway, exercise optimizes learning in 3 different ways. 1, in brain systems. 2, at the cellular level, it makes our cells more plastic, makes them more able to grow, which is necessary. If we're going to learn anything, we have to grow our brain cells. And 3 is we create new brain cells, called a process called neurogenesis. And we know, this is a study showing that just with a little bit of exercise, this is on your left is before exercise, on your right is the activity in the brain of 20 kids in comparison who walked for 20 minutes. All they did is walk for 20 minutes. Their heart rates were about 60% of the maximum heart rate. So it wasn't much. It was just a little bit. Oh, by the way, their scores from the beginning to the end for pre-walk and after walk went up 11%, which was statistically significant. And you can see their brain became more active when they're moving, which is really part of the big problem, that our kids aren't moving. And this is the last area of the brain that evolved, the prefrontal cortex right behind our foreheads there. And that's the area that gets turned on all the time when we move, when we exercise, when we play. It gets switched on. And that area is where we think, we parse information, we plan, and we inhibit our impulses. Also, exercise, we know, releases all these chemicals. And that's the source of what we know, that exercise releases norepinephrine, serotonin, dopamine. I say exercise is like taking a little bit of Ritalin and a little bit of Prozac. And it is. And so exercise makes the learner a better learner. It makes them more attentive, less impulsive, decreases their fidgetiness and nudginess, improves their arousal, lessens fatigue, improves their mood, improves self-esteem. These are not just observations. These are facts. These are facts in animals and in humans. It works. And it works for Jack. Now, this is Jack after he's had his exercise, right? I mean, he's a very smart dog. He is going to talk soon. So, you know, when he's exercised, he's fine. He can take notes for me, which I really appreciate. Don't forget he has ADD. So when he doesn't have no recess, look what happens. So with that, rather than go on, I realize the time is short, so I'm going to stop here and urge you, like Dr. Cooper did, that we have to do something. You all now have a chance with getting the measures and seeing what you can improve those scores and improve the health of our kids. And at the same time, you're not taking away from their ability to learn and perform. We know this. We know it. It's a fact. It's not something that somebody made up. So it's a way to help the students do better on their whatever tests, whatever state you're in. Doesn't matter. It works. So thank you very much.
As I said during my presentation, parents thought we were invading their home to try to get their kids fit and lose weight. We found, too, that in presenting this type of information to PTAs, parents groups, once they see the facts, what's happening in our state, they're getting the message. So again, it's the same thing, is that we're going to have to educate and motivate our parents to motivate the kids to get this turnaround. I've said so many times, so you can't expect to get the troops involved unless you get the general involved. You can't expect to get the employees involved unless you get the CEO involved. You can't expect to get the kids involved unless you get the parents involved. But just by showing them details, facts, what's happening, testing, that tends to motivate the parents.
There's been a lot of work done on that now, and around the world. I'm speaking on Sunday with Obama's sister, Oma Obama, about a program in Kenya that she's helped started, where they work with adolescent girls to get them active and involved in sport and athletics, and it's had a tremendous effect already in the various villages where they're involved, so that it really takes it has a big effect, has a viral effect, has a community-wide effect. And that's what we see with the girls in the programs where we've been. It's everybody, both boys and girls are involved, and they're proud of it, and they realize it. We're starting a whole program at Harvard called the Harvard Runs Project. And it's actually mostly the girls that they're helping start it, to have the idea is to encourage every Harvard student to run a half marathon before the Boston Marathon next year. And they've allocated money from Harvard, which is really amazing, to get a coach and people involved, and it's the girls that have really been pushing this agenda. So they recognize it.
Dr. Cooper?
You know, in 1968, my first book was published. We actually saw questions in the media, is it ladylike for a woman to sweat? Seriously. It wasn't ladylike back in those days. I'm happy to say now that over 700,000 people to finish a marathon last year, and 52% were women. Can you believe that? What a change.
One thing that any of you may follow up on, there's a terrific organization in Atlanta, Go Girl Go Atlanta, may be represented here in the room. I know some of their partners are. They provide technical assistance and training to organizations that want to do a better job of engaging young girls. If you can't find them online, you can shoot us an email to the office.
Let me answer your last question first. There's a lot of studies looking at strength training and its effect on the brain. Its effect is very similar to aerobic exercise, but not nearly at the level that aerobic exercise brings. And we have a hard time getting rats to lift weights, so we don't have a lot of data from the animal kingdom, and that's always a problem. What time of day? I think throughout the day is the best answer. Movement all the time. You know, I have slides that I didn't get to showing kids at standing desks. That's a new phenomena that's hit the schools, where you have kids standing all day. A lot of computer companies have standing desks where the workers are standing all day by choice. Okay, they have a chair behind them they can sit on, but the kids are standing most of the day because they find what? They find there's more activity. What's happening? Their muscles are acting, right? There's more muscles involved, not just the core, but the big muscles that affect the brain and that turns the brain on, and it turns the learning part of the brain on as well. So that's part of the answer. But I think the biggest bang for your buck is to have even 10 minutes of exercise in the morning. You know, the old school teachers who really knew how to get their kids ready would take their kids for a walk around the schoolhouse or run around the schoolhouse before school began because it worked, and it does work. So I think the morning exercise is so important, but you get the effect throughout the day if it's like at the end of the day with sports and all that. So
For me, the end of the day is best. 2 reasons. One, being a typical type A individual, I have to burn up the stress of the day so I can sleep at night. Are you a type A? You plan a day what you're going to do tomorrow, salt your food before you taste it, can't stand to be lulling conversations like finish sentences for people. Typical type A behavior, according to Dr. Friedman, his book, Type A Behavior in Your Heart. People ask me why I talk so rapidly. I said, because for 51 years, I've been trying to finish the sentence before my wife does. Type A all the way. If you're a type A, you're waking at 4 o'clock in the morning worrying about the day. If you're a type A, you can't stand to be defeated by that child in a game. All typical type A behavior. For me, exercise at the end of my 12-hour days, yes, I'll soon be 80 years of age, and I go to work at 6:30 in the morning, get home about 8 o'clock at night. But if I don't get my workout in before I go home, I can't sleep. I awaken. I don't require tranquilizer or sleeping tablets. So physiologically, any time during the day has merit, but I think the best time is before the evening meal, particularly if you want to control your weight. Because something we've noticed too is that when you go out to exercise, heart rate, say, mine, when I was running regularly, it's about 45 beats a minute. After I exercise, it goes up to about 160, 170. Now, I must drop at least 12 beats the first minute following exercise, or there's increased risk long-term of a heart problem. We know that. It drops down to about 120. 5 minutes is down to 100. But it takes 2 hours to get back to 45 or 50 because repaying the oxygen debt. If I eat my meal during that time, I'm more effectively burn up the calories. I weighed 204 pounds at one time. I weigh 164 at the present time. I have to follow it. I have to follow my own recommendations. But by doing that, I've found that I can control my weight, I can rest at night, I can sleep well, so exercise does a double benefit for me. One other thing. Yes, I believe that my first book, people criticized me because they said they're too hard on calisthenics and weightlifting. I'm not, I've done that myself. But you need the aerobic base first before you have the strength training on top of that to be totally fit. I was concentrating on that until I was 55 years of age. After many years of skiing, I discovered that I couldn't ski more than a couple of hours snow skiing before my quads burned so badly I had to stop and rest. What I'd left out was I wasn't conditioning the front of my legs, cardiovascular system run 5 miles in 40 minutes, but I couldn't ski more than a couple of hours because of one word, the specificity of training. I wasn't doing any weightlifting along with that. To my new books, I say this. In your 30s, 80% aerobic, 20% musculoskeletal. In your 40s, 70 and 30s. In your 50s, 60 and 40. And above 6 years of age, should be almost the same, 55 and 45. Then you can pick up a sack of groceries without pulling your back out. So yes, I have changed the concepts over the years. People accuse me of changing recommendations in my book to try to sell books. It makes me sick when I hear that. I changed my books, as John does too, based upon undeniable research. And I'll admit, I used to think the more is better. The more you run, the better off you are. Run marathons, half marathons, ultra marathons, have a good cardiovascular system, musculoskeletal problems as much as you want. But now I say if you run more than 15 miles a week, you're running for something other than cardiovascular fitness. And now I tell you, if you get even 30 minutes collectively of activity most days per week, you'll have a dramatic improvement in your health. Because that's undeniable. We find moving up one block on the 5-block fitness scale based on treadmill stress testing can reduce deaths from all causes by 58%, heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, and cancer, and increase your lifespan by 6 years. We're projecting, by the way, Walter, we're projecting now that if people followed our guidelines, as have the last 40 years, our men will last 87.5 years, women 90.5 years. Could that happen? Average age 88 years, the national average is about 79 years? No, because look at Loma Linda, California, where the vegetarians, Seventh-day Adventists, average life expectancy 88 years. Think about that. Don't die of something stupid. A lot of people do.
I think there's a lot of stuff going on in that arena right now, and there has been, and there's a lot of good evidence, a lot of clinical evidence as well as looking at the brain. You get very similar kinds of effects from meditation, from just being quiet, from being serene. My friend Kathleen Hall has out here in the audience has a thing on self, serenity, exercise, love, and food. And then you have life, you have a lifestyle that really works for you.
One thing that was terrific about tonight was having the governor here and learning about the stage he has set for us to take the next step. On top of the materials you have a notice about a meeting coming up on October 5th. All of the events we hold, we challenge the folks who attend to leave not just thinking it was a pleasant experience, but to actually do something. One of the things we want you to do is participate in this meeting. My job depends on it. The name Gears, you'll see more about it there. The nice thing we can promise you is the next governor will be at that event. And you can challenge that person, I guess it's going to be a him, isn't it, to state what is going to happen next. And as we heard tonight, the opportunity to create an impact in a child from the time they're born through their preschool years, through age 5, is critical. There's a microphone at that table. And Stephanie, would you like to say anything else about the meeting?
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephanie Blank. I am the current board chair of Children's Healthcare of Atlanta's Foundation Board, but I'm also the new chair of a new organization in Georgia called GEARS. It stands for Georgia Early Education Alliance for Ready Students. And what's new about GEARS is we want to look at all the aspects holistically that touch a child's life from birth to age 5. Our new executive director is also here, Mindy Benderman. I don't know where Mindy, can you stand up? Mindy was previously with Voices for Georgia's Children. My husband laughs that I talk more about Mindy than I do about him now, but all of the issues that we want to work on, whether or not it's teen pregnancy, high school dropouts, exercise, obesity, whatever the issue may be, if we can start, as was mentioned earlier, with our littlest citizens, they're the ones that if we can imprint this into the brain, they're the ones that will take these messages home to their families. Whether or not it's buckling up in your car, or it's not smoking, or it's eating healthy, we know that if we can catch them early, then we can make systemic long-term change in our children for the better. And it makes more sense economically to start those choices early. So GEARS is having a summit on October 5th. It's about early education and why it's such an important investment for this state. We've been a leader for many years, but we're falling behind now, and it's time to step up and gear up for children. So if you have an interest, you have an invitation at your table there, and we hope we can get you as excited about this issue as we have some of our others. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. As we wrap up, A thank you to all of the organizations that helped put on tonight, volunteers and folks that made the event work. Their logos are on the screen. Thank you to Lee Bond and Joanne Ellis for making the night run smoothly. Instead of flowers, the place settings are things that will help you and your families be active. Take them with you and be active. Let's thank our speakers. Good night.